At a family dinner, my rich wife declared. The knife trembled in my hand, though not enough for anyone to notice. The steak was cooked rare, bleeding into the porcelain plate like an open wound. Her voice cut sharper than the knife ever could. My ex will always be part of my life. If you don't like that, don't marry me. The dining room went silent. The chandelier above flickered once, its crystals shimmering against the heavy velvet curtains. A long mahogany table stretched between us, her family on one side, me isolated on the other like a defendant at trial. Everyone stared at me, waiting, weighing. Her father, the real estate mogul, sat with his hands folded, expression carved from stone. Her mother pretended to sip wine but lingered, eyes darting between us. Even her brother, the polished tech lawyer, smirked faintly as though the spectacle amused him. She didn't blink. She wanted an answer, here, now, in front of witnesses. Her wealth insulated her, emboldened her. She thought the dinner table was her courtroom. I swallowed, the taste of iron heavy in my throat. I said one word. Okay. I didn't look at her, didn't look at anyone. I cut the meat clean, lifted it to my lips, and chewed slowly as though nothing had been said. But inside, something split. A silent fracture, invisible to them, lethal to me. By the next week, the wedding invitations were canceled, and she realized, too late, that the marriage was already dead before it began. The truth never arrives as a thunderclap. It seeps in like water through a cracked foundation. That night I lay awake in her penthouse, the skyline pressing against the windows like silent witnesses. She slept beside me, her breathing steady, dreamless. I stared at the ceiling. Her words replayed. My ex will always be part of my life. Not was, not used to be, always. A man preserved in amber, eternal, untouchable. I thought of the look on her face, calm, unyielding, certain I would bend. The arrogance of someone who had never been challenged, never been left. Her family's empire protected her from consequences. They were the law, the money, the walls that held this city together. But I wasn't like them. I had no empire. What I had was silence and patience. I told myself it was just pride, just a careless declaration meant to provoke. But the doubt grew teeth. The way she glanced at her phone in the mornings, thumb lingering too long before setting it face down. The locked drawer in her office she told me not to touch. The way she avoided details when speaking about her friendship with him. Her voice always dipping, as though rehearsed. I tried to believe her, for a time, but belief is a fragile currency. Once broken, it buys nothing. I began collecting moments, small, invisible threads. Her calls that lasted too long in the car before she stepped out. Her sudden weekends away, business retreats that required no clients. The expensive bottle of cologne in her drawer, one I didn't wear. I said nothing. I played the part of the composed fiancé, attentive, calm, silent. But silence can be a weapon. At her family firm, I walked the hallways like a shadow. Her brother, the tech law CEO, spoke often of data privacy, encryption, firewalls. He bragged that their systems were impenetrable. I smiled and nodded. People who brag about walls never notice the cracks. A single email, left open on her desk while she poured herself wine, gave me the thread I needed. His name, his address, his phone number. I didn't confront her. I didn't rage. Instead, I searched. Phone records, financial statements, hotel bookings. I learned the rhythm of her deceit. Every Tuesday, 7 p.m. sharp, she worked late. She didn't return until after midnight. I followed once, far enough to remain unseen, close enough to watch. She wasn't cautious. She thought wealth was armor. She thought secrecy meant safety. She didn't know I'd been raised with nothing, forced to learn that survival depends on noticing the details the rich ignore. I kept a ledger in my mind, a record of her choices, each one a blade she pressed closer to my throat. And I smiled when she kissed me goodnight. The truth arrived in an envelope, unmarked, delivered to my office. Inside, photographs. Her, him, hotel, bed. Proof. Not just infidelity, consistency, a pattern. She hadn't stumbled once. She had built an alternate life brick by brick, confident I'd never see it. I stared at the photos for a long time. The images didn't hurt me the way she expected. They clarified. They freed. When she returned that night, I placed the envelope on the dining table. No words, just silence. She opened it, and her face drained of color. "You?" she whispered. "You followed me?" "No." My voice was calm, almost detached. I didn't need to. Her hands shook. She looked at me as though searching for anger, for some eruption. But there was nothing, only stillness. The silence spread, filling the penthouse, louder than any scream. Her mask slipped. For the first time, she looked small. The wedding was weeks away. Invitations sent, venues booked. Her family invested millions in the spectacle, the merger of power, wealth, reputation. I waited until the perfect moment. Her father's gala, hundreds of guests, investors, politicians, cameras flashing. The pinnacle of her family's empire on display. She stood beside me, radiant in her gown, her hand lightly gripping my arm as though nothing had happened. She believed she still held control, that her secrets would remain hidden if I stayed silent. But silence is also a stage. When her father raised his glass to toast our engagement, I stepped forward. "I'd like to make an announcement," I said. The room stilled. I withdrew a small stack of papers. Photographs, hotel records, messages. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I simply laid them across the table in front of her father. "This," I said quietly, "is the woman you wanted me to marry." The silence cracked. Gasps, whispers, cameras clicking like gunfire. She reached for my hand. "Please." I pulled away. Calm, cold, final. "I already said okay," I whispered to her, "but not to this." And I walked out. Behind me, chaos erupted. Her empire, her carefully constructed image, collapsed in seconds. I never looked back, not once. The invitations were canceled the next morning. Her name became a scandal in headlines, whispered in boardrooms, mocked in private circles. Her ex vanished. Her family distanced themselves, publicly condemning her betrayal to salvage what remained of their empire. She tried to call me. Messages, pleas, promises. I didn't answer. The silence was my only reply. In the end, revenge didn't require rage or fire. It required patience, calculation, timing. The truth, exposed at the right moment, is the sharpest blade. And I had cut her deeper than she ever imagined. I gained nothing material, no wealth, no empire. But I took the one thing she valued most, control. And in that quiet, cold victory, I found clarity. She once said, "My ex will always be part of my life. Now, so will I. Not as her husband, not as her victim, but as the scar she'll never heal from." I walked away, leaving her to choke on the silence she once thought was mine.